Today on the news and why it matters, we are breaking down last night's debate. Talk to all the gentlemen at the table about what stuck out to them and who is going to be the next one to go. I'm interested to see what you guys think about that. Mario Lopez apologizes already, is already backtracking on his comments he made about transgender 3-year-olds. The true comments, the true comments. And also a new study that's out that says that humans are racist against robots. Obviously a lot to get into. Don't change the channel. It starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. We've got a lot to get into. Obviously, first we want to thank our sponsor, Relief Factor. Relief Factor is there for a lot of you who are just constantly living in pain. I know, well, maybe not you, Aaron.
Not yet.
Aaron's the young one at the table. He's not reached the age like the three of us have, which, by the way, welcome special guest Kevin Williamson.
Yeah.
Author Kevin Williamson, he's got this new book out that we are going to get into. The Smallest Minority. We're going to talk about this because this is a book that we really need to discuss, get into. But all the three of us, we know what it's like when you hit that age where you just wake up and you've got a new pain.
Yeah.
In the back or in the hip.
Well, sleeping's hard. I mean, it's
hard. It's really hard on the body.
Yeah, they're really hard on the body. It's funny. What do they say? 2/3 of people that live in constant pain just kind of give up.
That's the most depressing statistic to me. They just think like, no, this is life.
Yeah, well, they're like, well, there's alcohol. That always helps. But no, Relief Factor probably a little more healthy.
Yeah, yeah, probably. It is 100% natural, so it's drug-free if you're trying all of these prescription drugs that have all of these nasty other side effects. And then it's like, oh, it's kind of masking it, but kind of not. You got to try Relief Factor. 70% of the people who try their Quick Start Pack go on to keep ordering more. It's working for the majority of people. It can work for you if you're in pain. It could be a lifesaver. Get the 3-week quick Start Pack for $19.95. You can go to relieffactor.com or you can call 800-500-8384. All right, a lot to get into. I'm going to be completely honest. I had a meeting.
Meeting?
It was a meeting.
Is it completely honest? So what was the meeting about?
It was a meeting.
Okay.
And so by the time I got home, I watched part of the debate. I did not watch the whole thing. I figured why subject myself to something so insufferable if everyone else had already tweeted about it.
I love
the
that
right attitude, right?
Bad choice.
That is actually a great choice.
Yeah.
I did watch it, unfortunately. It was, I would say, the first one of this round I thought actually had some substance to it. They really kind of were able to dive into the policy differences, which is relatively rare in a big field debate like this. But this one last night was really just everyone deciding the way to get myself on television is to yell at Joe Biden about stuff, which is actually probably a pretty good instinct.
Yeah.
You go after the big fish. It was interesting to see. There's a lot to cover through it, and there are a lot of sort of things that I think you could take. But for me, I thought the most interesting thing is how this party seemingly, because Biden is the frontrunner, has sort of turned on Barack Obama. I mean, here's a guy with a 95% approval rating among Democratic voters. And they kind of seem to think he did a really crappy job all of a sudden.
He might have lost the debate. Obama might have lost the debate.
He was. They were torturing this guy. I was really fascinated by that. They're basically saying, one of the big back and forths was Kamala Harris and Inslee and everybody going after Biden's health care plan. Biden's health care plan is Obamacare times like 1,000. Like they're adding the big public option into this, and it's going to massively expand a program that they told us was already going to solve all these problems. Right? Like this is their thing. They act as if like Donald Trump came in on day one and passed some horrible right-wing policy. They act as, they really are talking about Obamacare as if it's, this conservative solution.
They also are saying people are dying.
Yeah, and
people are dying under the current law.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's the one that you guys passed, right?
If you look at it, it's kind of an interesting inversion of the way Republicans do things, where Democrats tell themselves their guy won last time because he was a sellout, whereas Republicans tell themselves their guy lost last time because he was a sellout. Right? It's like, Romney, if he'd just been more hardcore, if he'd been more of a maniac, he would have than President of the United States, whereas the Democrats tell themselves the opposite story. I spent the evening reading Middlemarch, which is an old novel, and then read the coverage in the morning. And of course, as it turns out, that truth often is stranger than fiction. It's a much more plausible story than what happened in the debates last night, which were just kind of bonkers. I don't want to rehearse my anti-Trump credentials. I will just say I wrote a book called The Case Against Trump.
I remember it, yes.
I'm not a Trump guy. It was ineffective. I'm not a Trump guy. But I read these things in the morning and I think, these people are crazy. And he's going to beat them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, Kirsten Gillibrand on stage talking about how she's the one to be president, so she can talk down to white suburbanites and explain what white privilege means.
She's the voice of racial equality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And it doesn't seem to be doing much for her. Whatever white privilege she has keeps her at 1% for some reason, which is it's not working out well. But on the Obamacare front, I mean, I'm amazed at this idea that here is a party that came in and told us this is how you solve health care. They said at the time it was a common sense solution. Basically, it was right from the Heritage Foundation. I mean, it was basically right from the Heritage Foundation. And it was not going to, it was nothing big. It was common sense. Now, Joe Biden, who wants to massively expand this program, he says in front of the cameras, look, there was nothing, this was really progressive what we did with Obamacare. He's now trying, what benefits him today is to say it was massively liberal, massively progressive. And so he's doing that in front of the cameras. They're hammering him because they don't think it's going far enough. They want to get rid of private insurance. These are things that are polling in like the mid-20s nationwide, and they can't stop themselves.
The thing about Obamacare is it's neither massively conservative nor massively liberal. It's massively Swiss, is what it is. It's basically trying to take the Swiss model of healthcare with the mandates and subsidies and graft it on the American system. And the difference is that Switzerland's full of Swiss people and the United States is full of maniacs.
Yes, I've noticed.
And Switzerland had like 99% compliance with their mandate. I think we ended up like at 27 or something like that, some just crazy number. But the healthcare stuff really got my attention because I'm sort of a fiscal nerd. I'm sort of a scold about this stuff. I pay attention to it. And the Medicare for All stuff, the conservative estimate is that it raises federal spending by 77% by itself. So the year that's enacted, we basically are just short of doubling federal spending. That's, I kind of want to have a longer conversation about that.
Yeah?
And,
30-second debate.
and maybe not with Gillibrand so much.
They do not want to have a longer conversation.
No, they sure as hell
That's
don't.
pretty clear.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's $30-something trillion, and look, be honest about it. There's no way it's only going to cost $30 trillion.
Yeah.
I mean, you go into these numbers, and this is the estimate they're comfortable talking about on stage. That is not the real estimate. I think we all know that, and not to mention the degrading of quality of healthcare. And then Sanders, who first said on the debate last night or the night before last, said there is no one here who can defend the dysfunction of this system. It's like, this is your plan we're dealing with. I didn't want this. This is you guys who said that. And he's saying that, look, we're gonna wind up pushing this, getting rid of all private insurance. We are going to push this so far that it's really going to make the average socialist out there a little uncomfortable. And that is an amazing place to be because they're admitting this on stage, and you got to believe this is going to come back to bite them in the general.
I'm not from the Rand Paul school of show me where in the Constitution it says you can do that.
Sure.
So really, we're going to abolish private insurance? Are we sure the government actually has the legitimate power to do that?
Great point.
What's interesting, too, to me is that, you look at what these candidates are saying insurance companies are responsible for, and it's just amazing. I mean, I heard them say that insurance companies are responsible for the opioid crisis. I'm like, they're not writing the prescriptions for these people to go get these pills. I mean, it's like they have the liberty now to just blame insurance companies for every single problem in the healthcare industry. I just have no idea how any of it works.
God forbid anybody on stage defend private insurance companies.
Thank you.
Somebody might like their plan. That's the worst thing that you can say up there, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about an industry with 6% profit margin. They make it sound like it's so evil. I think Brian Riedel said it comes out to something like $80 a person.
Yeah.
That's their profit.
Yeah.
$80 a person. And, they act as if this profit motive is this evil thing and not the thing that has turned our civilization into what it is today.
Right.
The profit motive is the reason billions of people are no longer in extreme poverty. The profit motive is a positive. Medication, a lot of times, is also positive. I don't know how profit and medicine have turned into this evil thing for Democrats, but it is.
In defense of the communists, let me say this. Insurance companies are terrible to work with, right?
They are tough
I've written a number of times that if it weren't for insurance companies, banks, airlines, cell phone carriers, and cable companies, the whole world would be entirely pro-capitalism. The world would be libertarian, Hayek, right-wing, Milton Friedman paradise. But those little 5 companies, those 5 industries are enough to sustain socialism on their own.
Fair, but when you hear Elizabeth Warren saying it's not the insurance company's God-given right to be for-profit, I mean, like,
well, and
it kind of is.
And Sanders said he thought the bureaucracy would go down when we go to this Medicare for all system. It's like, well, step back for a second, because we always have to ask that question. But instead of this, what are you getting, right? Like, what's the alternative here? And if the alternative is Bernie Sanders making my medical decisions, I am with you because I've had problems with insurance companies before, but I'd much rather stick with this than to go to that.
I love them complaining about the paperwork with the insurance companies. Because when I've dealt with the federal government,
No paperwork.
They're
a lot of bureaucracy.
They added about 10 million different new paperwork when they enacted Obamacare.
Yep.
They increased the regulations.
Yeah, I mean, look at the tax code. Think about filing your taxes. What a nightmare that is. And then think about every single time you have any medical need, you have to deal with them. I mean, that is like.
That's why they're
just
so
that.
focused on villainizing the current system and not focusing on how is ours going to work. Because we don't want people thinking about that, because everybody knows if you really think about it for a few seconds, like, that's not going to be a great idea.
Can we get into the candidates specifically and how we feel like they all did?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I did a little quick grade breakdown for those of you who are writing books or having meetings.
What could be more important than these debates?
Oh, yeah, I know. So this was kind of the night one breakdown. In case you happen to miss it, it's at World of Stew on Twitter is where I posted all of these. I thought Williamson and Delaney did very well. You kind of go down the list at the bottom, Ryan and Hickenlooper. Klobuchar, I'm surprised, has been as bad as she has been. I thought she actually had some potential to make a run at this. I'm starting to doubt myself on that one, but she's still sort of a prime VP candidate if she doesn't massively mess up. Night two, what do we have first? We have Tulsi Gabbard at A-. I mean, Gabbard has done well in both of these debates. Yes. She comes off, I think, as one of the more serious candidates, even though her kind of history and viewpoints. Interesting would be a good word to describe her history and viewpoints.
As the female at the table, can I just say she looked amazing?
Yes, I can't say it, but you can.
Such a good wardrobe choice.
She looked great.
She looked like an angel. She just had this aura about her.
And she was Joe Biden's angel, by the way.
Yes.
As we talked about on the preview show, Gabbard is going to run interference. She wants a VP slot or a Secretary of Defense slot. And she did that very effectively last night. That's why she had her at the top of the heap. Castro, I had a second with a B. He's forgettable, but he's competent. He can get through his points. He's a little boring, and he's very extreme in my view, but also pretty competent as a debater. He can get to the points he needs to. Andrew Yang, again, he pretty much says the same thing every time. He's like, he's like the radio station that plays the same song at the top of the hour every single hour. Everything he brings back to the universal basic income, which also was polling in the mid-20s nationwide. But he at least was effective this time and was able to jump in and get some time. Kamala Harris, C+, much worse than her last debate. She was great last time, was pretty mediocre this time at best. Joe Biden was better than he was last time. But again, he's still middle of the pack. If he can continue to do that sort of thing, he'll probably have a good chance of winning the nomination. He doesn't have to be spectacular. He's got a big lead. He's got a lot behind him. But he was only mediocre. Cory Booker, I think I'm out of the step with everybody else on Booker. Everyone thought he did a good job. I think he's insufferable.
He really is.
I agree.
Every sentence he says, I feel like I've seen him practice it in front of a mirror 12 times.
Since he was 14.
Since he was 14, right?
So it's incredible that he could still be so bad at it.
Yeah, he's just, it's overacting.
Did you like his Kool-Aid line?
Oh, Kool-Aid line was
worst.
Awful.
What was the Kool-Aid line?
He said, in my community, we have a saying, you're dipping in the Kool-Aid and you don't even know what flavor it is. What's the worst?
No. What is the downside?
I don't know who says that.
The downside is you think it's orange Kool-Aid and it's grape. They were both delicious. I don't even understand what the downside of this is. By the way, is this a saying in
I've never
your
heard it.
Community?
Not my community.
Okay.
Really Cory Booker probably come from different communities.
Maybe. Jay Inslee with a...
Newark, Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
Like all the same thing, essentially.
Jay Inslee, a D+. I mean, the reason I didn't give him an F is because every other candidate on stage uses him for climate cred. Like they like the climate street cred. They're like, look, my policy is the same as Jay's, and Jay's fantastic. Well, you keep telling us this is the most important thing in the world. If Jay has the best plan, why aren't you picking Jay? And of course, the reason is that they don't actually think it's as vital, I guess, as maybe they say it is. Gillibrand was really bad. She sort of stood out a little bit. The white privilege thing is just a disaster. She's rough, man. She's got to just drop out of this thing. Michael Bennett had some really good points. I made some moderate points that I think a lot of people in the audience would agree with. But I still gave him a D because he's just not good at this. And he, unlike the first debate where like Delaney really made, I think, he was able to focus the debate on, hey, it's okay to be moderate. Bennett just comes off as a little stiff, and he just doesn't pull it off as well. And then Bill de Blasio. I mean, there's no surprise to see Bill de Blasio at the end of a list. I gave him a D-. I mean, he made a little bit of noise, but he started up, what is the website he started up? Like taxthehelloutoftherichh.com or
He said
something?
that twice, yeah.
Oh, he is insufferable.
So you didn't,
if you want to be
fail
Mussolini,
anybody?
you have to make the trains run on time.
You didn't give anybody an F, did you?
I didn't. I have in past debates.
So nice.
This one I was a little. I mean, I could have given De Blasio an F. The reason that I gave him a D- is because his job at this point is just to be noticed. He needs to get to 2 or 3% to make it to the next round. So at least he was noticed, though he was noticed for being awful.
All right. Up next, we will wrap up our analysis of the debate and also talk to Kevin Williamson about his new book. Stay with us.
Anyone disagree? Well, you guys didn't see it. Nobody watched the thing. You can't just.
I watched it.
Before we get back into it, want to thank our sponsor, realestateagentsitrust.com. So no pressure if you are looking to buy or sell your house. It's just, I don't know, like the biggest investment you're ever going to make in your life. Your real estate agent, turns out, is really important when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a positive step to have someone that you actually do trust, that actually knows how to do a real estate transaction and not screw it up. And of course, you should be able to get those basic things. But I do think that there's a level of just sort of blind faith that we have in the system where it's like, well, any real estate agent should be fine.
Right.
And that's not true.
No. And there's so many of them out there who they dabble in it. They do it part-time. They're your friends, nieces, sisters, brothers, pet sitter. That's not what you want. You got to know where to find a good real estate agent, a real estate agent that has been vetted by Glenn and his company. You can go to realestateagentsitrust.com. Like I said, they vet all of their real estate agents for, their expertise. They've been doing it for long enough that they know the area. You can trust that they're going to put you in somewhere safe with your family. And they're not the part-timers. They do it full time. So you can go to realestateagentsitrust.com. They have got one located where you are at or where you're moving to. They can help you. Wrapping up the debate, I want to get into a couple different individuals. Number one, Andrew Yang. Yang Gang, right?
Yang Gang.
He brought it, okay, but he did say some things that, you kind of go,
That's the Andrew Yang guarantee.
namely on climate change. Let's listen to what he had to say.
The important number in Vice President Biden's remarks just now is that the United States is only 15% of global emissions. We like to act as if we're 100%, but the truth is, even if we were to curb our emissions dramatically, the Earth is still going to get warmer. And we can see it around us this summer. The last 4 years have been the 4 warmest years in recorded history. This is going to be a tough truth, but we are too late. We are 10 years too late. We need to do everything we can to start moving the climate in the right direction, but we also need to start moving our people to higher ground. And the best way to do that is to put economic resources into your hands so you can protect yourself and your families.
Aaron?
Yeah, he's literally saying it's over. Like, the Earth is dead, so go to the mountains.
I thought we had
go
like
to the
11 and a
hills.
half more years.
I thought we had 12 years. That's what they've been telling us. And now all of a sudden it's 10 years too late. So he kind of went far to the left of even Jay Inslee on this situation and said it's over. So I'm kind of wondering, well, what are we even talking about now? I mean, if it's over, is climate change really the most important thing, or should we just start packing up and moving
Open up the
with our
tailpipes.
$1,000 a month?
Yeah.
You notice how he brought that back around.
Yeah,
too,
that was
so,
like he was amazing at doing that last night. Was he literally saying we're moving to actually higher area, like elevations, or was he saying
sounded
like
like.
we need to elevate our politics or something?
I think he was talking literally about moving.
I do too.
I have more or less conventional views about climate change. It's unpopular among conservatives, but I'll believe that they believe it when I can afford a house in Malibu.
Yeah.
Because the market is not saying it's expecting climate change. Real estate prices are not going down in South Florida. They're not going down on the California coast. They're not going down on all sorts of private islands and stuff around the world. So
I will give Yang some real credit here, because it's one thing that is never mentioned and should be focused on, which is we're 15%. And by the way, it was 20% not too long ago. We're 15% of global emissions. And so to give you a nerdy breakdown of this, about 1/5 of our emissions come from the transportation sector, which means when they're telling you to buy a hybrid, think of this for a moment. If you were to turn off literally a switch of our entire transportation sector, you would cut global emissions by 3%. That is not something that is worth even entertaining. We're talking about larger projects like nuclear energy or something that could actually address it as a wider scale. It's something important, but remember that China is growing emissions by about 1.5% to 2% per year. So even if you turned off our entire transportation sector, that would be wiped out by China's gains in 2 years. We are focusing on things that make absolutely no difference. Even if everything that Al Gore has said about the science is completely perfect, our focus is in the entirely wrong direction.
We joke about, Andrew Yang saying this extreme stuff, but this is the kind of thing that moves the conversation in the Democratic Party, and it's the kind of thing that they'll use to say, this is an emergency, we need to take executive action or whatever to do the Green New Deal. And that's the kind of conversation where it starts as a joke, but it sort of seeps through to the other candidates as they each try to compete with each other to be the most progressive on an issue.
Yeah. What did you think, Aaron, of the questions that were asked of the candidates? Did you think that they were fair again?
I thought CNN actually did a better job than I expected of not making it easy on the candidates. They pitted them against each other. They forced them to defend their policies, and it's clear that the candidates don't like that. And so every time a moderator would say, don't you think it'll incentivize illegal immigration if you give them free health care and decriminalize it? They say, we need to stop these Republican talking points. If you,
and then they would come back and avoid, they try to avoid the question. They'd come back and check with them again. They made Elizabeth Warren admit it, that she wanted to decriminalize the border. She did not want to admit it. She ran around it a million times, but she did eventually admit it.
It's like they're going to have to run against Trump at some point, so they're going to have to answer these questions, and they're sort of trying to get around the hard questions of how do you pay for this or what is the result of that, and at some point that's going to come back and bite them because there is a general election coming up.
Yeah, dismissing the other side's arguments as just, well, that's part of their talking points is the dumbest way to go about doing things, because right now there are a lot of Democrats talking about trillion-dollar deficits and they're complaining about it, which is a Democratic talking point. But it's also a fact.
Right.
There also are trillion-dollar deficits. And it also probably would incentivize people if you decriminalize border crossings and give them various kinds of benefits. I don't think you can just dismiss that as saying, well, that's what the other side is saying, because if the other side is saying what happens to be true in this case, which is rare enough for Republicans, maybe force them to deal with it and not just run away from it that way.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back. All right, Kevin,
Hey.
The Smallest Minority, it's out.
Yes.
Give us your hook.
Why are people so crazy? Well,
I already love it.
If you are kind of wondering why it is that people are engaging in this performative, hysterical outrage when it comes to politics rather than having something more like a normal conversation, and where this behavior comes from and what it means for our politics, that's really what the book is about, the ways in which it's seeping over into the real world. And then there's also a lot of funny, borderline unpublishable, profane stuff in there that I'm surprised they actually brought the book out in its current form. So not one for the kids. The footnotes are pretty rough in points, but they really are.
You are really, I am so excited.
The footnotes are brutal. And so I kind of annotate what I'm actually thinking as I write the book down there, and I just sort of left it in because I thought it was fun. And so yeah, it's a fun book for that reason. And if you have a feeling of contempt for this mode of politics and this mode of discourse, I think you'll enjoy the book. And if you don't have a feeling of contempt for this mode of politics, you should. And you can read the book and figure out why.
I like some of these here, these quotes in the back.
Yes.
Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. And that's why he can't work here.
Yes.
And then we have Paul Krugman from the New York Times. Truly reprehensible.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
quite the achievement.
And the National Review, Rich Lowry, unemployable.
Unemployable, yes. From my current employer, yes. So Rich says the National Review strategy is to make all of their best writers unemployable by their publications. So we'll have to come back if we ever try to leave.
Perfect.
That's funny. Okay, so wait, they can find it on Amazon, everywhere.
Barnes & Noble, all sorts of places. Probably garage sales soon enough.
Stop it. The
Happens.
Smallest Minority out now by Kevin Williamson. Go get it. We've got a lot more coming up in overtime. Make sure to tune in. So funny.
That was a very good sell. Maybe
I know. I'm like, I can't.